This is the opening sequence to Steel Collar Man, a failed TV pilot that aired the year of my birth. Beyond the patent ridiculous of pretty much everything you're seeing here, it is also notable for starring Charles Rocket, a member of Saturday Night Live who was quickly fired for dropping the F-bomb on a live broadcast. Under no circumstances are we going to be watching this show. My want to review filmed media on this website, at least in video format, is done and gone for now because, frankly, it's just a headache of running on a treadmill and making adjustments, only for the whole thing to have to be canceled before it even gets off the ground. Hence, why I'm showing you Steel Collar Man. This awful thing has been indicative of my state of mind at work this past little while, trying in futility to do the Seagal thing, only for the whole thing to be abruptly canceled.
Get your hand off my penis! And you, sir, are you waiting to receive my limp penis?
Which is when the simple thought hit me. Why don't I make videos about the stuff I do to blow off steam when I'm stuck and stressed out? You know, the stuff that can eat your entire day like that when you're like me and your anxiety comorbidities read like the mixing instructions on a particularly elaborate cocktail. The games you play when you're locked into the absurdities of this fake world of paper, forms, red tape, and you just find yourself saying, you know what, screw it, let's go be Vikings. Valheim is the product of the scrappy, creative, and capable folks at Iron Gate, and published through Coffee Stain. The best and easiest genre framework that it fits into is that it's an open-world building and survival game with light RPG elements and simple but very functional combat. I could liken it to Minecraft, but I won't, because I kind of bounced off of Minecraft like buckshot against hardened steel, and I don't know enough about it to say one way or another how things measure up. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate Minecraft. And I respect the really neat things that people can do with it, such as Turing-complete code execution via in-world physical objects and subversion of fascistic governments by promoting the free flow of information online. It just doesn't jive with me from a gameplay standpoint is all. Instead, I chose to go into Valheim through the eyes of someone that was expecting to be able to halt his game of Skyrim at any time so as to settle down and play a nice, relaxing game of City Skylines instead. In that sense, it's kinda accurate, but also kinda not. I mean, for one, Valheim moves and controls infinitely better than Skyrim, with player mass being significant, real, and apparent in how you move, but also with a forgiving amount of jump height and air control. So in other words, as long as you hold the sprint button down, it's really more akin to playing a boomer shooter from that aspect, with how much you can truck around and how high you can leap. But also, unlike Skyrim, the world of Valheim is almost completely unpopulated by other people. If you're playing solo, you can count the number of friendly faces you'll see in gameplay time on one hand, though the devs are working to change that. But regardless, the feeling is more of a distinctly deep wilderness than most fantasy games. The vibe of being dropped off, literally, check out this Delph Valkyrie depositing your Einherjar avatar into the afterlife, in the midst of a pristine nowhere, to be left to your own devices and do as the gods will you to. Make a home in untamed Valheim, the newly uncovered 10th world of Yggdrasil. By the way, see that branch up there? That's Yggdrasil. Try not to look at a lot of stuff in this game for too long. It may actually cause sanity loss. Not in your character. I mean you. Now, it is important to note that by the very definition of who you are and what you are in Valheim, the death isn't that much of a problem. You are Einherjar, a warrior of the gods plucked from death on a mortal battlefield to serve as a divine instrument. You might be sore after this happens, but you'll be fine. And yet, this is a game that will make your fight, flight, freeze response kick in so frequently, there's times it can make you feel like you're playing a horror game. Now, part of this is because at this moment in Valheim's early access life, death still comes with the hefty penalty of you dropping everything you had on your person, and that can be a big fucking loss depending where you are in the game. Don't worry, they're doing a thing about that.
Thumbs up, soldier! That's my big hobie!
But the biggest part of this comes from Valheim's astonishing atmosphere, which portrays a world that can range from being idyllic in how absolutely sylvan everything is, a place where even the regular colors somehow seem extra pretty, to a world that rapidly becomes a descent into an unknown hellscape of both natural and unnatural origins. See the first biome, the meadows? Absolutely beautiful, the sort of place you want to put a home up in, and you will. because it's absolutely the smart choice to make your base in the meadows. It's completely non-threatening. The boars and graylings that wander the thicker trees, don't worry about them, they're just a nuisance. After a point, they become a tasty nuisance.
I got Gleazy! Fuck your life!
But as you progress and begin to make your baby steps outward into your greater Viking conquest, you'll come across the next viable biome for you to explore, the Black Forest. Honestly, in terms of vibe, it's a little more foreboding than meadows, but it's also beautiful and wild, and like the name would suggest, it gets dark in here really fast. Because Valheim's world lighting is no joke and will create extremely realistic forest shadows that simply become of contiguous darkness. Look, see? Knock these trees down, the light comes in. And now I'm going to practice afforestation, because that's the right thing to do. Oh, where was I? Oh, right, atmosphere, right, okay. So Valheim's setting this mood of you being in a slightly darker and more dangerous place, and it's doing it so subtly that you find yourself beginning to underestimate it. Like, sure, straggling greylings have turned into packs of their full-grown form, the Greydwarfs, and they know how to throw rocks now. That's not much, but it's something to ratchet up the tension. And then, suddenly, a ruined tower. You move to investigate, only to find it's being crewed by spooky, scary skeletons, who attempt to send both shivers and arrows down your spine. Depending on how early you are into your exploration of this biome, you might be able to handle them. They can hit hard early on, but they're also bones, and they really don't like it when you get a blunt instrument and go bonk bonk on the head. And that's when one of these, somehow very quietly, lumbers up on you.
Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
That sure put some gray in the beard the first time I saw that. You might ask, hey, when you're new to this biome, is this a winnable fight?
No!
You might be able to wear down a troll with flint arrows so long as you brought the ammo for it, but in terms of trying to stand and bang with the big blue bastard, you're so far out of your punching weight, you might as well be fighting 4 elementally themed butterbeans. But there's a refrain in Valheim. If you can sustain yourself, then you will prevail. Building your home lets you also build up your ability to advance your level of technology and craft better equipment. The better the gear you fashion for yourself, the more you'll be able to endure, persist against, and triumph over the hostile world. Suddenly, what were once frantic guerrilla warfare encounters with overwhelming foes become a scene out of one of the better Wolverine movies. You go have a match with Omas, you blue raspberry jabroni. I want that belt.
Load the spaceship with the rocket fuel! Load it with the worst!
Though as you triumph, the cycle still repeats. Because welcome to the swamp, where the atmosphere grows more oppressive. There is no choice but to proceed onward while wet, because of the constant rain, into a darkness you have not yet faced in terms of sheer volume and gloom. It's haunting the first time you stumble into the swamp, because you aren't ready for how tangibly miserable this place is. I don't even want to make the requisite Souls comparison to the toxic marshes in those games, because the dread this place evokes just feels so much more earned from the vibe alone. This shit's like if Silent Hill was in Louisiana. This is backed up by the now ever-present danger that this place represents. The Black Forest gave you moments to breathe, places where you could very clearly see where the threat was coming from. In the swamp, you have to stop and think clearly about what's around you, because danger could be literally anywhere. You've got to think about how much of this ever-present shallow water you want to cross. Not because it's poisonous, but because the giant leeches in it are. You've got to be aware of these standing stones, because even though they have treasure at the center of them, they also have enemy spawners, and the Draugr of the swamp pack a major punch while being creepy as all fuck. They also like to patrol, and are very, very quiet while they do this, right up until the moment they aren't. Hey look! Burning swamp gas. And around that burning swamp gas, fragments of Surt's immortal and seething wrath, shaped as tiny simulacra of him. Great. Cool. Awesome. Kill them with axe blows, drown them alive, make them not exist anymore, you horrible fire children. Because just when you think you've got this place down, even if the tension of the atmosphere is wearing you, then an abomination rises out of the ground. And that whole fight, flight, freeze response thing, it kicks in again. Because what is this? Who made this? Who is to blame for this? It laughs, and I assume it's because it delights in its own agony. Somehow. It's moments like this that I'm glad that chuckling Frankentree has the very logical weakness of axe. Because at the very least, it, like everything else in the game, drops something useful that you can use to build into something more pleasant. It seems strange to front-load this video with a rundown of how oppressive and frightening this crafting and building game can be, but follow with me. Fear and wonder are the opposing sides of the same coin, but it's a coin that can be made to land on the wonder side pretty consistently as long as it falls on a stable foundation. So welcome to the stable foundation, Valheim's excellent building component, and the means through which to make that coin land with the wonder side up. The first thing that you're going to notice here is that Valheim doesn't subscribe to the notion that ancient cultures were devoid of color, making sure that you have decoration options at the ready from near to the jump. This game's color palette is bright and lively to begin with, but it doesn't just leave you hanging to exist in what some AAA executive thought the European Iron Age looked like, which is most likely a series of browns and grays where people wear mud-colored clothing and don't wash their faces, ever. No, none of that. Look, actual colors! The snapping and modularity of the building pieces feel as though they're as if erector set girders snapped together like Lego bricks. And even if it can be a little finicky to get things to snap how you want them, it's very satisfying when it works properly. Once snapped together, you can start throwing down rugs, furniture, banners, and more to start sprucing up your home. Even if you're just working wood, you can make a place that looks great, because the basic pieces the game gives you straight from the outset are designed to teach you how everything snaps together. You can build a framework, add floors, walls, and then top it all off with a properly angled roof. And note when I said properly angled, I mean it. Until you get the ability to cap over a structure in stone or make actual shingles, you're going to be working exclusively with thatched roofing, which means it either works on these angles, or it doesn't work at all. You can't just build another wooden floor over the head and call it a day, because like in real life, that shit's going to leak if you do that. Beyond that is the matter of heat. You can't just go to sleep in Valheim without a fire nearby. Naturally, this seems pretty simple to solve. That's fine. Just build a campfire outside, light it up, go to sleep. Except, oops, then the storm rolls in and you can't get to sleep on this dark and stormy night. Clearly, there has to be a better way. Clearly, you just leave a patch of your floor open, bring the campfire inside, light it up, and, well, okay, this is great. Now we're suffocating. Perfect, cool, awesome! Yeah, that's right, folks. This game generates the flow of smoke from any structures that might generate it. From simple campfires, to bigger hearths, to braziers, to these fucking awesome-looking things. This means you have to be mindful of how you keep the heat built into your house. Keep it outside and it can go out from exposure. Unless you build it in an enclosure with a cap. But if you're going to do that, then why not be clever and build a chimney? Or do as the actual Vikings did, we think, and just make the fire the centerpiece of your home. The smoke allowed to drift up into the rafters and out the open ports in the ceiling. If it works, and if it doesn't, you'll begin to suffocate. And also the fire will go out too, because it suffocates as well. Neat! Beyond both the building and the decorating, Valheim features a whole suite of homesteading activities that really drive deep the fact that you're a stranger making a home in an untamed place. It's a full plate of things to do. Farming, mining, refining, sailing, crafting, fishing, cooking, brewing.
Violence.
My goodness.
Each of these feeds into each other. You start the game on a generously sized starting island, but eventually you're gonna find the edges of where you can walk to. Eventually, you're going to have to take to the sea and continue your exploration of the world that way. And you can do that with a raft, which can be had pretty early on in the game, but this is inadvisable for doing anything than going up and down rivers. The ocean is a large place, full of enormous asshole spawn of Jormungandr, who like to come out at night or during storms to test the integrity of your hull. This is a bad situation to be in when you're floating on a series of logs layered over each other and lashed together, and it's best to just avoid it altogether. Oh no! By building the humble but mighty Karva instead. It's a higher level tech item that you'll have to wait a little bit for, but it's worth it. It's significantly faster and more durable than a raft, meaning that it'll make serpents have to actually chase you when you got the wind at your back. And even then, it's durable enough to take more than a couple of whacks from them. Just all around more ocean-worthy, up until you get the even better and faster longship, which is just a goddamn pleasure to sail with.
Some people stand in the darkness, afraid to step into the light.
The process of making the carva is a series of organic pressures that gives you a set of objectives without a single mark in a quest log. You need fine wood, bronze nails, resin, and deer leather to make the thing. The resin and the leather are relatively simple, with resin being available by chopping down both trees and graylings, and deer leather available from hunting deer. The fine wood and the nails, however, are where the quibbles come in. See, fine wood lives in birch trees, and beyond them being rarer than the ubiquitous beeches that live everywhere in the meadows that yield basic wood, they can't be chopped down unless you have a proper metal axe. So how do you get a metal axe? Make one out of bronze by mining both copper and tin. How do you get a pickaxe to mine with? Beat the boss monster of the meadows.
He needs some milk.
And go make your first one out of its harder than stone antlers. Got that, so go get that ore and bring it back to the base. Wait, hang on, you got hungry in the midst of this, and that's fine, you won't die, but your health and your stamina pools will suffer. That's fine. It's an excuse to do some cooking and engage in this game's interesting means of both portraying survival elements with a character that is canonically immortal, as well as advancing your RPG stats. See, VALHEIM does have a skill system, and it's what I'd call basic, functional, and organic. Do a thing enough, the number goes up, and as the number goes up, you either get better at doing the thing, spend less stamina doing the thing, or both. But for health and stamina, things go in an interesting direction. Simply put, your level is what you eat. The higher the quality of the food you can cook, by being able to exploit your current biome or through mastery of prior ones, the more health and stamina you'll gain to your meters when you eat. These buffs last a significantly long period of time, enough that you don't have to constantly be poking at your character's inventory to get lunch ready, but it's also enough pressure to make you slow down, stop, and do other activities for a while, rather than wildly forging ahead. You can't constantly raid, you're going to need to refill the pantry eventually, because without food, you're going to have to start fighting on an empty stomach. Oh no! And that's just a non-starter, even for a 9 Harryar. Okay, lunch is over. Got it. Where were we? Right, the ore. Smelted in your smelter. You make those with Circling cores, which can be found in a number of places, but firstly in these burial vaults in the Black Forest. You take the smelted bars, and you alloy them, and bingo, you got bronze. Make enough bronze, and you can make an axe, and also the nails you'll need. Take that axe, and put it to work. And now you got some fine lumber. And now, you've got your carva. Mission accomplished. The way to the ocean is now safely open to you. Be you brave enough to sail it. Nothing in this game will tell you to do that, at least not explicitly. Hugin, one of Odin's ravens, and a very good boy, will pop up from time to time to give you hints and context clues of what to do when you get a new thing, but ultimately, the entire game works off the organic logic of wanting to expand and make your stuff better. It gives you the tools to explore and travel, and then plants the idea in your head that the thing that's better than what you have right now is just past that one particular point of the horizon you haven't sailed beyond yet. And while I can't say that's true Viking spirit or not, because I haven't actually met a real Viking, what I can say is that it speaks to what we tend to see as an idealized version of them when we look past their bald-faced ruthlessness and brutality. Speaking of brutality... Now, like I said, I don't know a lot about Minecraft, but one of the things that I have heard a lot about it, even from people that like it, is that the combat is pretty flaily and something that really requires you to make your own fun out of it. Again, not going to knock it. I don't really know enough firsthand to confirm this, but from what little I did play, if there's hidden tech in the basic fighting in Minecraft, I wasn't finding it. Which brings me to the combat of Valheim, which I can describe with 2 words. Simple, ferocious. Valheim is a game of basic 2 or 3 hit combos and strong attacks with long windup. And that is basically the start and end of a weapons move list. Valheim is also a game with a poise meter, a dodge roll with some very active and deliberate invulnerability frames, and one of the most vicious parries I've seen since fucking Metal Gear Rising.
I'm fucking invincible!
Don't care.
Nope.
Oh my goodness!
Predictable.
Nobody touches this, Andy!
I don't care. I don't.
Jesus!
Heavy machine gun.
Super grenade! In peace, motherfuckers!
The mechanic is simple. Time your block with an appropriate weapon or shield just as the enemy hits you to instead blow their attack aside with a satisfying thunder crash of a sound effect, instantly breaking the enemy's poise. This will send them into a long stun animation, which will not only persist after you start wailing on the enemy, but also every hit will land for double damage, allowing you to, conservatively speaking, gut your foes alive. Yes, this even works if you parry an enemy projectile. Does that make sense? No. Does it rule? Yes. Every fucking time it rules. This parry, combined with some very satisfying archery combat, and even some surprisingly functional grenades, all work in tandem with a gradually deepening arsenal of weapons to provide a combat experience that isn't as involved as a lot of other full-blown action RPGs, but is also one that feels more well-realized than a lot of those games. Like the weight in the movement, there's weight in the combat, and you really feel it when you're using a heavier weapon versus a lighter and quicker one. Your stamina meter drains while sprinting, jumping, and attacking, but thankfully not with your guard up. The rate of expenditure and recharge varies whether or not the game sees you as being properly rested, or if you're wet from either having taken a swim or getting rained on. This gives you pressure to not just swing wildly, because not only can you catch your breath while blocking, but a series of riposts delivered to a stance-broken enemy can end an encounter within a matter of seconds, if not a literal second. Because when you're tired and surrounded by foes in a midnight thunderstorm, and yes, this can happen, being able to drop an enemy with a single, brutal blow where normally it might take several more, it counts for a lot. And beyond that, there's nothing quite like throwing an enemy onto his heels, then knocking it 10 meters backwards with a single shot from your magic silver frost hammer.
Come on.
And satisfaction is part of why we play games. It's why I keep playing Valheim.